Welcome back to Consider This. Melissa and Sharaad here with you. Now, the government has decided to defer the second reading of the Independent Police Complaints and Misconduct Commission Bill, or better known as the IPCMC Bill. Now, it will only be tabled in the next Dewan Rakyat meeting. The IPCMC Bill would create an independent oversight body to investigate and handle disciplinary action on police misconduct. So, to discuss this further, we have joining us in the studio, talking about police reform, Melissa Sasidaran, Director of Lawyers for Liberty. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you.
Help us understand what happened today, the deferment. Was this expected? Were you surprised when you heard?
Well, as we know, this bill has been pushed very strongly by the Law Minister, Dr. V.K. Liew, because he's been one of the few reformists in the current government. And there's a lot of work that has gone into pushing for the IPCMC bill. Lots of consultations have been done. The PSC Select Committee has done public hearings on this, and civil society have put in various recommendations on how to fine-tune, the bill. Because the question here is not whether it should be formed. The question is, how are we going to do this? Of course, there's various models that we can take from other countries, so there was so much discussion, and finally it was due to be tabled today for the second and third reading. From our side, there was a 50-50 hope of it being passed, simply because of the amount of work that has gone into it. So, it's quite clear, and as I understand it, the Cabinet has also approved the tabling of this bill, meaning it's a government bill that should be supported by all Pakatan members of Parliament at least. But unfortunately, as we can see in the recent weeks, we can see from news reports that there has been an increase in the pushback from the police mostly. And of course, nowhere in the world you will find a police force that will support this. No one wants more scrutiny.
Right.
Yes, but what has been astounding is that at every public hearings that has been done by the PSC, the police has mobilized themselves, and they have put forth a whole list of their objections to the bill. And it's just shocking, why would you not want, better accountability, better transparency? If you're talking of a few bad apples, which, there may be more than a few, but the whole point is we want to weed out these bad apples.
Okay, could I just interject at that point? I mean, at this point, because the police have, over the years, have maintained that they can deal best with their own miscreants and those who are rogue, as they put it, right? They feel that they have sufficient mechanisms internally to deal with that. The critique, of course, on the other hand, is that unless these mechanisms are independent, then the public is not going to trust them. And we have many instances where the existing mechanisms have failed to deliver justice, to say, especially in cases of death in custody, of which perhaps there are too many. So, Melissa, we know that there's the two in push and pull. You say V.K. Liew is a reformist within the government. You say Cabinet has given, as you understand it, given its approval to it. What could have gone wrong?
Well, I think, there are two parts to this. Firstly, the opposition. Of course, they have thrown their full support behind the police, and there's a reason for this. There's a very clear reason for this. It's simply because the opposition were playing politics. They're not serious in advancing this country to a better country, better democratic country. They are simply protecting the police force who have protected them in the previous administration. We are all well aware of the sedition dragnet, the peaceful assembly dragnet. So many people were arrested. There was rampant abuse of power. Apart from death in custody, police shootings. So and the police have always protected UMNO. So now they have thrown their support behind the police. Secondly, although the law minister has taken it upon himself to table the bill, but essentially this is a Home Ministry bill, because the police force is actually under the Home Ministry. So the only person who can withdraw the bill is actually the Home Minister. And I think there's so much spotlight on the law minister because he's the public face of this, but not enough is being shown on the Home Minister,
Muhyiddin Yassin.
Who has to answer why did he, despite the cabinet green light to table this, why did he pull back this bill?
Okay, so does this bill require bipartisan support, as we had like with the Undi 18 situation?
It requires a simple majority.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of commitment from the Pakatan Harapan government, and they have the numbers. But unfortunately, as I said, it's the Home Ministry that is, the stumbling block to this. And I think they need to answer why did they pull the plug on this at the 11th hour.
Well, I'm also curious because you said that the police have been mobilized in the past few weeks, months even, to raise objections. But when the IGP first took office in May, he was very supportive. He gave police reform the green light. And I'm just wondering why there's still been numerous objections coming from the police if the man at the top, if the IGP has already given his support for this.
And the tabling of this IPCMC bill has taken us 14 years to reach this point, only because the IGP, when he took office, he was freshly minted, he gave the green light, and it paved the way for the government to finally table this in July. But of course, over the last few months, perhaps true colours have come out. And I can only say that the mobilization of the police and the strong objections from them, it clearly shows that there is no seriousness in supporting this bill. Because
sorry, can I just say again before we go to a break? Is it because we could have had an IPCMC bill that was quite toothless? But now it seems like the government was very serious about giving the IPCMC real muscle. Could the IGP have actually supported a toothless IPCMC rather than one that actually would be effective?
Actually, these are all just excuses. Because if you look at the IPCMC bill, it's not perfect in any way. And no country, when they start to form an independent police complaints commission, it starts off perfect because every country starts off against a backdrop of public distrust in the force. So there are provisions in the IPCMC which are lacking, but there are also good provisions, like for example the disciplinary sanctions, which is not in the EAIC bill. That's why you see recommendations being made, but at the end you can't do anything with it. There's no power to impose disciplinary sanctions, fines, and reprimand, and so on. And also with the IPCMC bill, there is a provision where for cases of grievous hurt and for death in custody, you have to automatically refer it to the commission. So these are all good improvements, which unfortunately the police is objecting to.
All right, we're going to come back and continue this conversation on the IPCMC bill right here on Consider This. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.